Welcome back, YouTube. I'm back with another Naruto and RWBY crossover. However, this one's a bit different from the rest. RWBY is the main character, while Naruto and Sasuke are there for support. Still main characters, but there to assist Team RWBY to keep their world from vanishing into the abyss. The ships for this story are White Rose, Ruby and Weiss, and Bumblebee, Blake and Yang. While Naruto and Sasuke are still with Sakura and Hinata. As you probably have noticed, I've been posting quite a bit recently. I'm trying to post a lot of the stories I already have on Archive of Our Own or fanfiction.net here to see what ifs you, my audience, wants to listen to. So your voice really matters. Tell me what you think. And as always, if you like this sort of content, think about hitting that like button and subscribing. The majority of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed, and if I get to 500, I'm going to do an entire reread of Hell of a Night, parts 1 through 10 as a movie. So if you want to torture me, let's hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, if you want to follow along, click one of the links below. Now on to We Won't Fall. The darkness had fallen. There was no hope left. Their world was ending. All was evaporating and turning to dust before her very eyes. All she could do was watch in horror as her friends and family turned into nothing. Tears welled in her eyes as she watched every moment of them fade away. Weiss faded before John could reach her. Blake crumbled in her sister Yang's arms before she perished as well. Nora and Ren held on to one another as the darkness swallowed them whole. Oscar disappeared and faded before her eyes as she desperately reached for him. Now she was left alone to lament in this pitch-black void of never-ending darkness. The end came so suddenly. Nothing could have prepared her for it. It wasn't even her who had caused it. It was never in her hands. It never was. Why didn't it take her? Why was she left alone? Why was this what it felt like for all those years after being the only human alive? She began to understand her grievance towards the world. Yet she persisted, wandering aimlessly through the void, seeking any comfort she could find. There was none. There were only her soul-crushing thoughts and memories of those she had lost. It weighed heavily on her soul. How long had she wandered this domain of darkness? She had no sense of time or reason. It could have very well been eons, but her body stayed the same. She was the same girl she was before. Was this a curse? Did she inherit that woman's immortality to walk a mile in her shoes? To understand her agony? 'Cause she did more than did. Two bright lights filled the void. One of malignant purple, the other of extravagant gold. She was forced to shield her eyes and look away due to their intensity as they approached and landed before her. She scowled. Were these who she thought they were? You are too late. Ruby uncovered her eyes with a bitter glare as the luminous lights dimmed, and she could gaze at who descended upon her. Yet she couldn't muster the will. She hung her head bitterly as her eyes misted at all she had lost. There is nothing left to judge. Our world has faded into the void, just like you two will. And so will I. Hey now! Don't lose that will to keep fighting just yet. We just found ya! A chipper voice of the golden glow resonated before her. Be ashamed to lose ya before we could revert the damage done here. Ruby, now clearly able to see the glowing figures before her, shot up towards the two and stared in confusion. They weren't who she had expected. Instead, it was two men. One with blonde, spiky locks, a vivid smile, and bright cerulean eyes. The other was a man with longer raven hair, one side parted, the other that covered his left eye while a visible onyx eye gazed upon her. Who are you? Ruby questioned, not expecting these two men to stand before her, glowing in similar colors to the brother gods she had come to learn about. about after their expedition into the ever after, and more from Oz. I was expecting, I don't know, someone else, I guess? Like who? The Raven One responded with a raised eyebrow, looking around. Nothing is left. Everything was swallowed. I know that, Ruby bitterly retorted before hanging her head. It's just, you see, there were two gods that created our world, called the Brother Gods. I mean, we have been called that before. I even called you that before, the blonde one grinned, causing the Raven Man to scowl. Shut up, Naruto. The other rolled his eyes and scolded his counterpart. Make me, Sasuke. The blonde grin only widening. We have time to kill. Annoying you is just fun. Focus. Sasuke clicked his tongue against the roof of his mouth and rolled his eyes again. His attention focused on Ruby, who drew Naruto's attention to her. He scrunched his face for a moment, annoyed at his friend not playing the game, before his face fell at the solemn expression on Ruby's face. Yeah, you're right. I should be treating this more seriously. Eons of this kind of make me lose focus, you know. That's why I'm here. Sasuke flicked his hair, giving Ruby a minor glimpse of what seemed to be a silver ringed eye beneath his raven hair. Don't understand how Hinata has put up with you for all these eons. Easier than you think, Naruto muttered, running his hand through his locks. His attention then focused on the solemn figure who stared weakly at them. So, you ready to go back? What? Ruby's eyes shimmered, startled, glancing at the two men she had thought were the Brother Gods. What do you mean, go back? What are you talking about? Hey, you were talking about reverting the damage. Are you saying you can return Remnant to the way it was before? How? What are you two? No, Sasuke shook his head, drawing Ruby's gaze towards him. That is impossible, even for what we have become. As for what we are, let's just say we do this for a living. Saving worlds is our specialty, a wide grin spread onto Naruto's lips before he scowled at the scenery around him, taking it all in. Hate seeing this, yet another world lost and swallowed by the void. Huh? Ruby was lost at how seemingly confident he was in his statement, before ingesting everything that said. They didn't have the power to recreate Remnant like the brothers? But he had said, what's the void? The darkness where a world is swallowed and destroyed, when it slowly fades away, and all its memories are forgotten. Sasuke frowned and sighed, glancing at the shadows their lights penetrated through. No one is sure what brings it about, just that it has taken many worlds far before their time. It happened to many worlds. We traversed the void since we have become ancients and were bestowed with these powers by Old Man Hagoromo, looking for survivors to restore any lost worlds, trying to restore the balance to the universe since the parasites sucked away so much of it so long ago and maintained that order. Naruto softly smiled before holding out his hand to Ruby. So, you ready? Ready for what? Ruby scowled, giving Naruto a sharp glare. You already said that you two can't bring back my world, and you were too late to save it. You're still here, aren't you? Naruto tilted his head, cerulean eyes meeting silver. So a part of your world is still fighting, holding on to that, or holding on to your world, trying to remember it, and everyone that remains dear to your heart. It's through you we can find your world again. You are the key. Ruby's eyes flickered at his words. Through her? She could return to Remnant? How? Ruby simply asked, wanting nothing more than to return to her friends, to change their fate, to change her fate, to give them one more chance. By finding you, one who was strong enough to resist the erasure of her world. were able to recall the flow of time in your world, reverse it to a time before it faded into the void, to a time where the world's memories are still bright and can fight off the darkness, and never be forgotten. Sasuke flicked his hair, fully revealing the silver-ringed eye as he turned to Naruto, the malignant purple aura beginning to shimmer around him. So, do you trust us? Naruto held out his hand as his cerulean eyes burned gold, and a golden aura lit around his frame as he knelt before Ruby. Yeah, I know it's strange. Two guys you don't know just appear out of nowhere after your world was destroyed, offering you a chance to go back and save your world. But, do you have any other choice? Your other alternative is to wander the void until you fade into nothingness yourself. Sasuke motioned to the void. Bastard! You don't have to put it that way, Naruto growled before his expression faded solemnly, and he gazed at Ruby. You don't have to trust us. I can understand not wanting to trust us after watching all your friends fade into the void. It's horrifying. But we really are out here doing this out of the goodness of our hearts. Despite his gruffness, a slim smile spread across Naruto's expression, and he held out his outstretched palm for Ruby. You can believe that. So are you ready to head back and rewrite your story? We can't do it without you. Silver eyes gazed into golden hues, watching as the magnificent golden aura mixed with the malignant purple aura. She knew they were correct. There was no choice. But looking into his eyes, seeing the concern and feeling how genuine his words felt, Ruby reached out and clutched his hand, deciding that it was time to go back. And all she saw was a swirl of gold and purple light. Ruby, wake up! It's time for our first day. Get up, silly! Silver Eyes blinked several times, her eyes adjusting. That light was so intense. Her stomach turned and her world spun as she lay in bed. She felt queasy, bile building in her throat. Where was she? Whose voice was that? Wait, it sounded familiar. Silver Eyes snapped open and stared directly into beaming lilac eyes. Yang bellowed with laughter, seeing Ruby jerk awake suddenly. Placing her hand on her hip while laughing, she shook her head. Jeez, Rubes! Oversleeping on our first day? Everyone else is awake and ready to go. And she was chosen as our leader? A bitter voice muttered distantly, causing Ruby's body to tense. Oh, hush you, Yang glared towards the perpetrator of the voice, who only rolled her eyes as she set up her side of the room. Oh, that's a good idea. We should probably get our things unpacked. I agree, and I'm done, another voice added before a clatter of stuff fell out onto her bed. That's all you have? Yang raised her eyebrow. Girl, we've got to go shopping for you. Too exciting for our first day at Beacon and stayed up too late last night preparing for class, Rubes? Ruby stared wildly at Yang as she suddenly sat up. Her eyes shifted to the other two in the room. Blake and Weiss were here as well? Their attention shot towards her immediately, and they turned to one another, more guarded than usual, while Yang's back was turned and gazed towards them. Blake was the first to speak. Yang, something's wrong. Her eyes shot to herself. She was still wearing the clothes she was before the void took everything from her. She was still in her old gear. She still possessed everything she had on her. She was still her old self. No wonder Blake and Weiss thought something was up. She couldn't blame them, but it didn't matter to her. Tears began welling and her eyes misted as she took in every detail of her sister's appearance. After being alone in that void for so long, to hear their voices again, she had to be sure. Rubes? What the heck? Yang stumbled as Ruby leapt towards her and clasped her tightly in a deep embrace. She was forced to catch her balance and hold her sister. Noticing Ruby's tears rolling down her cheeks and the sobs racking her body. Ruby, what the heck? Are you okay? Are you having a nightmare or something? Wait, are you taller than you were yesterday? And your hair! And that outfit! What happened? You didn't notice when she sat up? Weiss cried, rushing over, weary of Ruby as she clutched Yang. Honestly, no. She's my sister. Why would I be? Yang retorted with a glower, gently patting and rubbing her sister's back, turning her attention to the more critical issue. Hey now, catch your breath. Tell your big sister all about it. What happened? Why are you like this? Still struggling to accept this reality, hyperventilating as she tightly grasped her sister in her clutches. Ruby tried to catch her breath. She was real. This was real. They had sent her back like they said they would. She didn't care about the odd things they said about her appearance. She had returned. She had a chance to change everything, to spend her final moments with. Where do I begin? Ruby wiped her eyes, finally letting go of Yang. I don't think you would believe me if I were to tell you. Try me. Yang scrunched her face, frowning as she took in her sister's new appearance. Seriously, something weird just happened, girl. I didn't hear anything weird last night or see you leave. So if you know something, maybe it would shed some light on what the heck is up. I would have noticed if she left. Blake frowned, her bow folded on top of her head, observing Ruby's appearance. Noticing the peculiar glance shot towards her from Weiss and Yang, she winced. Just trust, would you? She would. She has her ways, right, Blake? Ruby nodded, agreeing with Blake, and gently smiled towards her. However, that smile caused Blake to stiffen as her gaze met. With one look at the changed Ruby, she didn't know how or why, but she knew. Ruby knew. Ruby knew she was a faunus, and that terrified her. Blake? Weiss saw her teammate tense and stare intently at Ruby. Okay, I get it. There's something weird going on, but shouldn't we trust Yang? Who are you and how do you know? Blake hissed, her eyes turning into slits, aimed towards Ruby. Like I said, you won't believe me even if I told you, Ruby sighed, but reached down into her hip pouch, connected to her belt and withdrew her scroll. Pulling up an image on it, she showed the scroll to her team, who all stumbled back, seeing older versions of themselves smile in the picture. I am from 3 years in the future. This is when we all became huntresses, desperately trying to save Vasio from the same fate as Vale and Atlas. I was sent back after the void swallowed our worlds in an attempt to change our story and save us all. It begins, Naruto whistled, cracking his knuckles, sitting atop a tower. Cerulean eyes gleamed as he looked upon the school. This would be a change of pace. He hadn't taught in some time. Oh, this would be fun. Now it's just time to get accepted as a professor of this university, or whatever it was. Tapping on his earpiece, he cranked his neck and stretched his shoulders, preparing for what cut came next. You ready on your end? Of course I am. You have the easy job, as usual. Don't act like you doing the dirty work. You don't like doing the dirty work. Naruto raised his eyebrow as he stood up, sensing a presence that had made its presence known as he sat on the edge. Electricity crackled and began to chirp, causing Naruto to chuckle. Yep, that sounds about right. Now then, I got a deal for you, Ozpin, is it? Correct, the voice wearily responded, measuring the man on the roof of his tower, unsure how he had come to be there. Your arrival here is at an odd time. Many strange instances are occurring all at once. What is this deal you offer? You'll love it, Naruto chirped, turning to face Oz, his eyes glimmering. I have the solution to all of your problems. But let's solve the first one I know that is bugging you. How about that girl whose spirit is split in half below? In all his many years of life, what he had saw before him defied expectations. He had seen a few things like it before, but those were held with powers far beyond his own. To see them be manipulated before him by what seemed to be immortal. How did you? A tall blonde woman's eyes wavered as she stared at Naruto. As he removed his hand from a tanned woman, her brown eyes flickering. She immediately stepped aside as the woman attempted to push herself up. Take it easy. You just woke up, Amber. How do you feel? Glenda? Attempting to sit up from the pod she was lying within. Amber reached out and rubbed the temples on her forehead. Scanning the room she was in, her eyes narrowed momentarily. She analyzed everyone and everything in the room. My head. It's like I've been sleeping for months now. Where are they? Who is he? I am the one who just woke you up from a several-month-long coma, Naruto chirped, placing his hand on his hip. Don't know all the details, but I know whatever that woman did to you split your soul. I figured I'd make things harder on her this time by restoring you, so she couldn't just off you and get her full power this time around. What? How did you know who attacked me? Amber's eyes sharpened, her breathing unsteady, and she began to cough heavily. I really feel like I've been asleep for several months. I have to ask the same question, Ozpin gazed, which never left Naruto, even as he miraculously pulled Amber from the brink, narrowed. I thank you for all this, but precisely who are you? And what do you hope to accomplish? Finally, they asked the question. Naruto broadly grinned. That's easy. I'm here to restore balance and ensure this world isn't destroyed by the shadows and lost for all the time. As for how I know who attacked you, I glimpsed the memories of a girl we found in the void after this planet was swallowed by the nothingness and sent back to assist us in this endeavor. So we kinda have an idea what needs fixing. The rest is really on your shoulders. The room was utterly silent. The stares Ruby was receiving. Well, she couldn't blame them. How often did someone from your future come and tell you everything was doomed, and that you were coming back to fix everything? Of course, they were looking at her as if she were insane. Ruby would have done the same in their position. If she hadn't had some proof of photos of them from the future or her older appearance, she would have been laughed at and told it was a dream. But considering she was visibly nearly 3 years older and had photos and videos on her scroll, it wasn't like she could be refuted. The bigger question was what happened to her original self in this continuity. She winced at that thought, but thought better of it. She could only hope she had merged with her original self. It was better than any other option she thought of. She shook her head of those thoughts and returned to the other elephant in the room. The petrified and stumped stares coming from the newly forged Team Ruby. A sigh escaped her lips. She knew this was difficult for them. It was difficult for her. You expect us to believe in this? Any of this? Yep, that was about what she expected. Ruby pitifully exhaled at Weiss's tone. However, she unflinchingly met her friend's ludicrous stare. With a sigh, she shook her head. No, I don't. Regardless of whether I have evidence, I don't expect you to believe anything. I've seen enough to know that. It's relatively easy to forge things like this, given Atlas technology and how many illusory semblances are out there like emeralds and neos. And then there are the Grimm that can manipulate entire dream realms. You might want to get checked. You're infected, by the way. That cut in the forest was a Grimm seeding itself into you. It will cause more problems later if you don't take care of it now. What? Weiss leaned back, latching onto her neck with wide eyes. How did she know about her getting nicked in the forest? She didn't tell anyone. Or did she think she hadn't noticed? How did she? Her eyes narrowed and then flickered in horror. What was that about a Grimm infecting her subconscious? Was that even possible? Grim didn't have that kind of ability. Did they? And honestly, that's fine. I wasn't expecting all too much when I saw everyone again. Ruby sighed. A sullen but hopeful smile spread on her features. Meeting each of their gazes, she leapt from her bed before they could react, heading toward her old effects. Perhaps she could restock on some ammunition and dust. She was running low. Stock in Vasio was low after everything. I had no idea what to expect when I came back. Where I would end up, how I would appear, any of that. So for things to turn out like this, I can't complain too much. Ruby picked out ammunition and dust, slid it into her pouch. Turning back to the rest of her team with a tearful gaze, she held a sorrowful smile. I'm just so happy to see everyone again. It doesn't matter if you believe what I say or not. If I had the chance to protect my friends, I will do what I must, even if that means I have to do this alone. With a determined glint and flick of her tattered and worn cape, the door opened, and she gave her team one last wave before exiting the room. Take care and become great huntresses. I'll see you soon. Oh, and Blake, please don't run this time. If things get difficult, we're here for you, especially Yang. Ruby? Yang's voice resonated timidly as she hesitated, slowly rising from her bunk. Her eyes were wavering, watching as her sister left their dorm. But the door shut, and as she rushed to open the door, all she saw were the blossoms of rose petals fading onto the other side. That was harder than she anticipated. Ruby sighed, landing on top of the dorm while scanning her old campus. She wanted nothing more than to reunite with her teammates, to fight at their side again. But it wouldn't be the same. This was their past selves. This was who they were, not who they had become. They hadn't had a chance to become who she knew they could become. And knowing what was to happen, what was to come, she wanted to give them a chance to enjoy their lives without getting involved in them. She could handle this, especially if those two were around. Alright, now where did you two go? Ruby frowned, knowing they were present. They said this was their kind of thing, and their specialty, so they had to be here. So where was the question? Her eyes fell into a single location and then rolled to the back of her head. She grunted before exhaling. Of course, should have thought of that. It's the most logical place to begin. It is kinda where everything started. Maybe I can convince him to give me my huntress's license while I'm at it. Ruby! Yang desperately rushed across the campus, calling out for her sister. Frustration was written across her expression as she looked around, tempting to locate her. She had tried to call her on her scroll, but her calls were not reaching her for some reason. That scroll was out of service, and that made her nervous, and gave her story credence. Come on, Ruby, where are you? Yang growled. Her eyes sharpened as she scoured the campus and all the students. She knew her sister could travel long distances rapidly, so she was at a disadvantage. But she had an idea that she would still be here, or at least that is what she thought. Whatever happened directly involved all of them, so she needed to be around somewhere. Try the headmaster's office. Yang stopped as a familiar voice echoed behind her, causing her to wheel around and see her two teammates trailing behind her. Weiss rolled her eyes at Yang's glare. Oh, come on. I might have my doubts, but there is something up. I won't just idly sit by when I know something is wrong. So let's put our heads together, use what we know, and get to the bottom of this. I'm in agreement, although I have more questions given what she knows about us. It can't be a coincidence, Blake nodded, her eyes shimmering towards the tower while Weiss grimaced. Her expression shifted to a more neutral state as she lowered her head and brought her hand to her chin, musing on a thought. In Ruby's story, she said we were all huntresses already. If she plans to operate independently to protect us from this void, perhaps she plans to convince the headmaster to grant her a license. Not sure how, but if she knows certain things, She might be able to convince him. Then we need to get there first. Yang's eyes bulged at the thought, and she sprinted towards the tower without hesitation. Ah, would you hold it for just 1 second? Weiss cried out in vain, while Blake rolled her eyes, exasperated. Yang didn't pay them any heed as she rushed ahead. The idea of her sister getting her license and leaving her behind seemed laughable just yesterday. But everything had suddenly changed. She had no idea about anything at the moment. She just wanted everything to calm down so she could get a handle on it. Ah, the first day of a new semester. Time to start the new year proper, my good chum. A heavy-set man wearing a burgundy suit with gold lining chuckled, walking alongside a disheveled man with long, spiky green hair, drinking from a thermos as they exited the elevator. Yes, this will be a grand year, full of excitement. I fear there will be little time to impart the importance of knowledge this year, but we must do our best, the scraggly dressed man grinned after putting down his thermos. However, his brow furrowed thoughtfully. But to have a new addition to our teaching ranks suddenly thrust upon us so suddenly, I find that strange, don't you, old friend? Quite so, the portly fellow responded with a nod, profoundly exhaling. But alas, as much as I trust our headmaster, he is a peculiar fellow. He has made many peculiar decisions in the past, but they have always worked out. I put my faith in him. Oh? As do I, huh? The spiky green-haired professor nodded at the sage advice from his fellow professor, before stopping as a figure stepped before them, their boots clicking. Their eyes wavered momentarily, and the twitchy professor spoke first, stumped at her presence. Summer? I can see why you think that. I kind of look like my mom when I don't cut my hair. Ruby nervously scratched the back of her head and winced at Oobleck, confusing her with her mother. It was something Raven commented on before the fall of their world, as she had let her hair grow out while in Vasio. She just didn't have the time to cut it to her liking. Seeing their stumped reactions, knowing that they were perfectly aware of who she was now, and that her appearance did not match what they knew of her, Ruby exhaled. Professors, I need to talk to Professor Ozpin. Could you let me on the elevator? My scroll's privileges are no longer recognized. I really need to talk to him. The moment the elevator rang and those doors opened, he was prepared. After he spoke with him about the shifts he had noticed these past few days had been jarring, and now it all culminated in something he wasn't quite prepared for. Receiving the call from two of his most trusted professors about what he was warned only confirmed it, and it still left him speechless. Professor, we need to talk. An older, more confident sounding yet familiar voice sounded from the elevator. She strode forward. It almost took his breath away. She looked like a younger version of Summer. It was almost uncanny how similar they were now that she was older, especially with her hair grown out, although she was still had messy comb-over bangs. But the one thing that uniquely separated her from her mother was those innocent silver eyes when he first laid eyes upon her. Yet now they held an edge with him, one similar to Summer's, and yet still shone with a brightness. Her spirit still radiated that same hope and refused to give in. No wonder if what was to come to pass happened, she was the only survivor. This version of Ruby could genuinely be indomitable. Yes, I do believe we do. Ozpin sat at his desk, taking every detail of the new Ruby in as she stood before him. Ruby frowned at his muted reaction, stopping just before his desk. You don't seem surprised to see me like this. I was made aware of what happened ahead of time just before your arrival. Ozpin, after a few moments of silence, finally faltered and his head lowered, a grimace on his expression. Ruby, I can't express my sorrow that you were drawn into my mess. I never once meant to draw you or anyone into this. This always was meant. Stop! Ruby interrupted Ozpin, sternly glaring at the headmaster. This fight may have started between you and Salem, but has long surpassed that. This is our fight to finish now. Silence reigned after her statement. Ozpin queerly stared at her, making the silence further uncomfortable. It was almost as if he was studying her. I understand that you wish to atone for your mistakes, but it's no longer just in your hands. It's all of Remnant's problem, and it has consumed everything until the shadows consume this world. And I aim to prevent that this time. Ruby broke the silence, keeping her gaze steady before she finished with a grim determination. Even if she was alone this time, she would find a way. Especially if they were around and their goals were to prevent Remnant from being swallowed by the void. You are absolutely correct. Through all my mistakes and attempts to correct them over the years, I still have quite a lot to learn. Ozpin exhaled, dimly glancing down momentarily with a forlorn expression. Then, meeting her gaze, a solemn smile spread on his lips. You have blossomed far more than I could imagine or hoped for when I first saw you. I wish this version of myself could have seen that growth. I assume you are here to request your huntress's license then? Oz added after a pause. Yes, Ruby simply replied. If he was already aware and they were around to tell him, then I hereby, Oz paused, taking a moment to gauge her reaction before exhaling, regret to inform you I will not. It was a far more measured response than he had thought. Again, showing the maturity and growth she had undergone. This was definitely Ruby from another timeline. Still, she was left in a confused stupor. She blinked with a stumped and confused expression spreading on her features. Huh? Wanna run that by me again? I said no to the request, Ozpin replied, folding his hands under his chin. That's the part that's lost on me. Why? Ruby squinted, attempting to reason with the headmaster. If they filled you in, the fact that there's another is quite worrying, Ozpin muttered, shaking his head at the thought. Ruby narrowed her eyes upon hearing that information. So only one of them was present here? Then where was the other? Before she could even ask that question, the headmaster exhaled, explaining his rationale. I know only a portion of the tale. He was deliberate about what not to speak of, as if anyone should tell that information. He said we will learn it in due time. And I relented, for this is your story to tell. Ruby frowned. She was grateful that they left it to her to inform everyone of the whole story. If he knew the full story, he would grant her. Miss Rose, where's the rest of your team? Ozpin interrupted her thoughts. Ruby's brow rose at that peculiar question before her expression softened and finally broke. She had left them behind. I left them to enjoy their second chance, to have a chance to live their lives this time around. May I offer you some advice, Miss Rose? Huh? Ruby pursed her lips, tilting her head at the professor's interruption. She was trying to follow this line of inquiry, and now he was offering her advice? But she was curious about what he was pressing her about, so she nodded and waited what he had to say. Miss Rose, you rightfully called me out for this, so allow me to do the same as your teacher. Ozpin formulated his thoughts, still marveling at Ruby's change. However, a frown crossed his expression, and he seemed displeased. Like you said, this is a problem for all of Remnant. To think you solved all of this on your own? We both know how foolish that line of thought is. So why are you making the same mistake I did? You've seen what a mistake that is. Ruby stuttered, attempting to find the words to respond, but fell silent. Despondent grimace etched on her features as she glanced down at her gloved hands. She was falling into the same pitfalls. What was she thinking? What could she accomplish on her own? Everything she had achieved in the past was with the rest of her team at her side. Weiss, Blake, Yang, John, Nora, Ren. Oscar, Uncle Crow, Pyrrha, and everyone else on their journey. Without the others, what could she accomplish? Even with the power of those who were sent back. I know it's a bit much to ask of you, but trust us, would you? A familiar voice confidently echoed behind her. Ruby stiffened, recognizing it as his footsteps approached, and the familiar blonde figure stepped beside her, shaking his head. We've done this many times for multiple worlds. It may initially be strange for you and your friends, but... Looking at the elevator, which Ruby noted had begun to move, Naruto smirked. You've got great friends who still care despite the rift in time and space. It's going to take that kind of bond to save this world. Ruby! The doors opened to the elevator. In an instant, her sister bolted towards her. Ruby grimaced at the irritated expression on Yang's face as she stopped in front of her. She quickly scanned the office and the people within, attempting to read the tone of the room. Whatever in the Ohm is going on, I am not gonna let you run off without me. You hear? Dad would kill me if he heard you went off on your own. So don't think about it. We'll figure this out together as a team. Right, girls? Don't lump me into this, Weiss frowned, taking a measured glance around the room, her gaze falling onto Ruby. But I will say I have to reconsider my opinion on the matter. I don't think this is in our hands right now. Seems as if we're too late, Blake scowled, glancing over at Ozpin and towards Naruto. His description seemed familiar to the person at the end of Ruby's tale, and that only added more credence to her story. Oh no, it's still quite in your hands, Naruto chirped, beaming brightly at the girl. Turning to Ruby for a moment, he held her gaze as if he were asking permission. Her eyes flickered. She simply nodded, and without hesitation, he held out his right hand, and a warm glow began to expand from it. You arrived just in time, actually. It makes this quite a bit easier. Now that all the main pieces that can change this world's fate are in one room, if I may, it will save us time. Taking a large gulp, Ruby nodded once more. It was her story to tell, but if he had a way to show them... Go ahead. With her consent, a bright white light filled everyone's vision, forcing them to shield their eyes, and despite that, images began to fill their minds. All were familiar to Ruby. No, these weren't visions. They were her memories. Allow me to show you precisely what will come to pass if you do not act. Naruto's voice resounded as she relived her memories, and watched as this iteration of her friends witnessed them for the first time. All their adventures and trials while at Beacon. The fall of Beacon. The Team Ruby breaking apart and reuniting at Haven. Salem's assault on Atlas and General Ironwood's fall from grace. The ever after. And then Vasio. And before the void swallowed the world, and she was left all alone. They saw it all through her eyes. Yet, as the images faded and she returned to the headmaster's office, her eyes turned to her friends. A gasp left her lips, and she stumbled, wordlessly mouthing that refused to come to her. Everyone had changed. What? That's what I want to ask. Why are we back at Beacon? Yang shouted, desperately looking around. Why do I have my arm back? How is that possible? Blake attempted to console her partner. Her eyes flickered, observing Yang flex her right hand, before swiftly turning to Ruby. What happened? The last thing I remember was being in darkness. So do I. What precisely is happening, and why are we here? Weiss scowled, taking everything in, worriedly glancing at Ruby and noticing the shocked expression on her face. She followed her fixated gaze, and her frown deepened, seeing her friend focus on a blonde man she didn't recognize. Was he involved in this somehow? She continued to observe the room until she fell onto a particular figure, and she too held a horrified expression. Professor? No, this has to be a dream. I'm afraid it is real, and that was quite unpleasant. Ozpin rubbed his temple and winced from the influx of memories. A little warning before would have been appreciated. Some of us were sharing a body at that time. Some? Naruto raised an eyebrow at the man. Ozpin glowered sourly, shooting a glare at the blonde enigma. So he stayed silent as the two hands wrapped around the collar of her shirt and he was dragged face to face with Ruby. What did you do? I thought everyone, that they were gone. Not quite. It's like Sasuke told you. Through you, we can recall the flow of time to this time period. Through your bonds, I could reach through time and return everyone to their prior states. Mostly. A soft smile graced his features, giving a quick look towards Ozpin as he stated the last part. Ruby released her hold, looking up at him in a stupefied awe. Though all four of you, we can keep this world from being swallowed into darkness this time. Now, are you ready? Ruby's eyes flickered once more as he held out his hand towards him. That line, he used it before returning. A new story is about to begin. Naruto gazed upon everyone, placing his hand on his hip and beaming at them, his excitement palpable. It's time for us to retell this story, and I'm gonna make sure you are all ready. Let the training begin. And that is where I wrap up this What If Ruby Resets Ruby. I hope you enjoyed. Got an end screen now. If you like this, you might like the one of the stories that pops up. Anyways, until the next time, my friends, have a wonderful day. Peace.